Hello, Gino here, and you are listening to Otherworld Connections. We live in a critical time where now, more than ever, angels and fairies, hidden forces, are bursting at the seams of the veil to work with us. They want to see us change in order to save the world and live in service to others. So join me on a journey to empowerment and enlightenment with an angelic angle and a fairy focus, looking into ways to improve our current situation, morality, archetypes, solutions for self-healing, and spiritual sciences in light of theosophy and other occult traditions. Hello, welcome back to Otherworld Connections. I am your host Gino, and today's show is Tree Talk. We're talking about trees today, again. Today we are looking at the yew tree. I just wanted to remind you that you can find the links to anything I read or refer to during the show in the description of this episode once it's published on my website, thesecretkindergarten.com, and of course on my channel's YouTube, otherworldconnections.substack.com, Odyssey, Rumble, and on all main podcast platforms. So, let's figure out what to do, what is better to do, how to heal, how to change, how to achieve goals, and live successful lives of service by making those otherworld connections, in particular, connection with the yew tree. Alright, let's look at the book by Fred Hageneder from 2013 called, you guessed it, Yew, Y-E-W. Just going to read a bit from the chapter Metaphysical Yew. The first point of call in the examination of the older strata of the cultural history of a tree is language. Names reveal a lot and also hide a lot. Nowadays, the most common globally used name for yew is its botanical name, Taxus, which is also reflected in most Latin languages and in the Slavonic languages. The probable origin of the Latin tax is the Indo-European tack, to cut, which extended into tax, to hew, to shape, and also tex, to make, to manufacture. I gotta say, New Zealand accent is probably the worst accent for talking of etymology. Oh my goodness. Tax is related to tag, tangere, to touch, or it's probably tangere. The other widespread word for the tree is, of course, the English one. The Old English. Okay, so the point of this, we're just going to move forward because I don't have video. Video coming soon to Otherworld Connections. The whole point is, they've weaved it back to the common ancestry, the original meaning of the yew. Wait, let's just get a couple more. Okay, there's the word eternity. There's the word always. And there is, okay, life force. So the common thread of the history of the word is Indo-European. Okay, we're going to be much like fairy tales, eh? So, Indo-European, we're hearing that a bit more on Otherworld Connections. Right, digging deeper, the Indo-European Ayu life force has been suggested as a root word for both the Germanic Yew and the Celtic Ebba. It is even apparent in the oldest name for yew that has come down to us, the ancient Hittite Ea, recalling the extraordinary levels of yew's electrical currents. This ancient association with life force seems more than apt. The past importance and significance of a tree can also be seen in the linguistic landscape. In Europe, places named after yew abound. For example, Eboracon, which is York in northeast England, Chateau d'Ilf in France, Yverdon in Switzerland, Eberg in Germany, and Eberini in Veruno and Invorio in Italy. The Iberian Peninsula is named after its ancient inhabitants, whom the Greeks called Iberians, after the river Ebro, Iberus, which must have had extensive yew populations in the past. The longest river of the peninsula, the Tajo, or Teo, Spanish and Portuguese, is also named after yew. So were Celtic tribes like the Llewellyn. Oh gosh, guys, a handful of Celtic tribes. Now I'm going to say it because otherwise that's censorship. Iborovices, Iburobrigen, Iburomagus, and the Eburones, whose king, Catovolius, took his own life in 53 BC by taking yew poison to avoid the shame of Roman captivity. In the Middle Ages, Georgia in the Caucasus was known as Iberia, and the native Georgian names for the tree are Chivituri Che, divine tree, sacred tree, and tree of God. The Japanese name Ichi means number one rank, a prestigious reference to the imperial inauguration ceremony in which a new emperor is given a yew wood scepter as a symbol of sovereignty. Japanese Shinto priests also use a ceremonial yew staff. In the mythological origins of Japanese culture, yew is inextricably linked with Hachiman, the divine protector of Japan and its people, and with Jimuteno, Japan's legendary first emperor and direct descendant of the sun goddess, Amaterasu. The yew scepter indicates that a new emperor is in harmony with the will and the ancient rights of the land. In the old language of the Ainu, the indigenous people of Hokkaido, yew is called onko, which again means tree of God. The theme of the king receiving his power from the guardian spirit of the land can be found around the globe. This ancient concept expresses the attitude of asking for permission for the changes to the landscape that human occupation via hunting, farming practices, forest management, and so on inevitably asserts. The earth belonged to herself and not to man, a concept that today we may call profoundly ecological. When the Indo-European Hittites came to Anatolia in the 18th century BC, they retained much of the older indigenous religion of the Hattians. Only the goddess of the land, the throne goddess, had the power to adopt a candidate for kingship and to bestow the royal insignia. In their ceremonial pact, the king agreed to administer and protect the inhabited land as well as to respect her territory, the wild mountains. As recorded on various cuneiform tablets, their ritual union was sanctified by the power of the sacred tree. As the yew tree is ever verdant and does not shed its leaves, even so may king and queen be thriving. Periodically reenacted in ritual, the king on behalf of his people received the gifts of prosperity under the sacred tree. From the yew is suspended a hunting bag, made from the skin of a sheep. In the bag lies sheep fat. In it lie symbols of animal fecundity and wine. In it lie symbols of cattle and sheep. In it lie longevity and progeny. In it lies the gentle gentle message of the Lamb. In it lie plenty, abundance, and satiety. Lots of lambs and kid goats around on my walk here near where I live in New Zealand. And I'd love to give them a little gentle massage, give them a cuddle. All right, so that's putting a different spin on monarchy, right? Inferring that nature and the earth comes first. I mean, imagine that. Having leaders chosen by trees. To receive one had to be worthy, hence the retrieval of magical objects is a widespread... Wait, hang on. To receive, one had to be worthy. Hence the retrieval of magical objects is a widespread motive in ancient myth and ritual. In early Greece, such competitions developed into the grand athletic games, such as those of Olympia and Delphi, and found a reflection in legends like the one of Jason and the Golden Fleece. Jason, too, becomes king after retrieving symbols of fertility from the sacred tree. His initiation journey with the Argonauts takes him to a mythical land in the east, Colchis in Georgia, which is the land of Yew, Iberia. He only succeeds because Medea, who is the daughter of the king as well as a priestess of the goddess Kirk, the guardian of the world pillar, accepts him as the future king and husband. Medea also commands a magical cauldron of regeneration and the art of healing. Later, Medea and Jason hold a sacred marriage in the cave where Dionysus, God's tree, was nursed. The Hittite origins of the Greek Golden Fleece legend leave no doubt that the ultimate symbol of life and renewal is the evergreen tree, and that the golden token of fertility in this rite is a pollen cloud from a male yew branch rather than a dead sheepskin. There we go. Apollonius Rhodius describes the fleece in the 3rd century BC as a cloud glowing in the sunrise, throwing a bush-like flame over Jason's forehead and cheeks when he picks it from the tree, and the ground beginning to sparkle brilliantly as he walks with it. In an old Hittite legend, the mother goddess, Hageneder, sends out the bee to bring her the fleece, and the insect returns and puts the fleece in a bowl in front of the sitting goddess. The ritual significance of pollen can also be glimpsed when Zeus, the Bright One, appears in the legend of Danu, an earth priestess of the seafaring Danaans, whom he impregnates in the guise of a golden fertilizing cloud. When she and her son, the great hero Perseus, are sent away from Argos, they travel in an ark or chest decorated with yew branches and arrows. Ancient Greek sources say that Danu travelled west to Italy. So did the worship of the Roman goddess Diana arrive in the Italian peninsula with Greek travellers. Diana is the goddess of the gateway tree to the underworld, like the old Irish goddess Dana. Whew. So yew tree special, yew tree important. Oh, okay. What do I want to say? Well, I do want to say that companies and brands use old words from mythology to sell their brand. Medea My washing machine's a Medea. Argos. That's a department store in the UK. Oh. And, they're choosing those words for pretty good reason, right? It speaks to something all the way deep down that's encoded in the soul of the human being. Okay? And the yew tree is tapping into that too. Let's look at these key words. Well, it's basically the tree of God, right? Gateway tree. But we know that trees in general are gateways, but we're learning that the yew tree is super special. God's tree. The connector between the people, the earth, and God. Many places are named after the yew tree. Tree of God, tree of God, tree of God. In many cultures, divine tree, sacred tree, life force. Now, I missed the information on the yew's electrical currents, so apologies there. I'm going to have to look into that. So there we go. Divine gateway tree of God. Okay. Let's look at Celtic Tree Magic, Ogham, Lore, and Druid Mysteries by Danu Forest. It's got to be a made-up name there again. Danu Forest. I mean, it could be just one of those things, right? Chicken or the egg kind of things. Okay. Let's read from Celtic Tree Magic. Yew. Idho. So Ogham is, look, I'm just going to be honest and say I don't really know, but if you really don't know too, well, I'll tell you that Ogham is an alphabet, a tree alphabet, where 25, I think, trees, or 25 letters are assigned. There's an alphabet assigned. Each letter is assigned to a tree. Now, besides divination, I don't know, I'm not sure what else it was used for, but there you go. So imagine runes, and actually Ogham, if you check it out, it looks a little bit like, not really, but it looks a little bit like I Ching. Lines, vertical lines and horizontal lines and stuff like that. So, so tree divination. Tree alphabet divination. Okay, other names for yew. The ancient tree, English yew. In Gaelic, lubha. In Welsh, wen. Okay, so obviously we're going Welsh, Gaelic, Celtic. Apologies for butchering it, but I think I should say it. I should try. Moran, Senemfedo, which is oldest tree. Eber, service tree. Interesting. God's tree, service tree, eh? Cuchulainn, Luth, Lobar Eas. Strength, energy of an infirm person. People or an age. Fairest of ancients. Pleasing consent. Okay. Yew trees are evergreen shrubs or smaller trees that grow up to 15 meters that can be far wider than they are tall. The broadly conical needles grow radially on upright stems and last for up to 10 years. They often have many trunks, which can form into a single deeply ridged central trunk that can even have gaps allowing access within its central space. The trunks often become hollow over time. Dun dun dun. We've done a lot of talk on the hollow tree, haven't we? and a special hollow tree segment at the end of the show, so stay tuned. Yew bark is soft, flaky, thin, and red or grey-brown in colour. The hard, green, oval seeds ripen into red or yellow berries by October. Growing all across Europe and North Africa, yew prefers damp, milder climates, but can grow in mountainous regions, up to 1,400 metres in the Alps. It also grows in the understory of deciduous woodlands, particularly in more open areas and on slopes and gullies. All parts of the yew are poisonous, except the fleshy part of the berry. But even the seed within is toxic, containing the poisonous alkaloid taxine. Yew sadly has become much rarer in its wild habitat and is now protected in the UK, but there are many cultivated yews in gardens, parks, and, of course, churchyards, which often contain yews of exceptional antiquity. Taxus brevolia, the Pacific yew, grows in the Pacific Northwest, as does Taxus canadensis, the Canadian yew. Both have similar properties. So let's look at the lore and legend of the yew. Yews may well be the longest living trees on Earth, often found to be surviving in some of the oldest British churchyards. Some yews vastly predate their accompanying churches and are thought to be as much as 4,000 or 5,000 years old. Take that, olive tree! 5,000 years old. Can you guys imagine that? So if you're in the UK and you go to a British churchyard and you see a grand old yew, imagine that. Try and imagine that being there for 4,000 or 5,000 years. Unreal, man. They survive the modern era by their connection to these churches, themselves often built in places of local pre-existing spiritual significance. There we go. That's a little nod to, the pagan world, the Indo-European pagan world before naughty Christianity came along. It is now thought that the importance of these sites has been marked over the millennia by the presence of the yews, giving rise to the church's long association with them. The oldest living thing in Britain, and probably Europe, is the Fortingall yew, which stands at the geographical centre of Scotland, in Fortingall churchyard. The tree's age is estimated to be 5,000 years old. That does actually blow my mind. It is thought that the yew trees achieve such long lifespans via their constant regeneration, causing their ages to be miscalculated in the past. This is why Moran refers to the yew as oldest tree, revealing a depth of practical knowledge we have clearly lost. Yew is also listed as one of the oldest things in the 14th century Irish Book of Lismore, which states 3 lifetimes of the yew for the world from its beginning to its end. 2 of the 5 great magical trees of Ireland, used as gathering places for armies and Druid convocations, were yew trees, providing testimony to their great importance in the Celtic world. Early Christians cut these trees down, unfortunately. Yews were once considered to be the species of the great world tree, particularly in the heathen traditions and across the northern hemisphere due to its incredible lifespan. In Norse tradition, the world tree, Yggdrasil, is thought to have originally been a yew. I did not know that. Although later Yggdrasil was considered to be an ash. I did know that. Perhaps signifying a cultural change to a more ordered and goal-oriented society suggested by the ash's magical qualities, as opposed to the yew's contemplative and meditative qualities, concerned with the balance between mortality and infinity. For this reason, yews are sacred to Odin, who used Yggdrasil as his horse, the means to traverse the 9 realms. Interesting indeed. The yew has several names in the Celtic tradition: Edo, Edo, Io, and Io. Io is also the name of the mythical salmon of knowledge. Said to be one of the oldest animals in existence, this salmon knows the mysteries and magic of the universe and is able to pass on enlightenment, the bright knowledge of bardic inspiration, also known as Awen, which makes the shaman, druid, bard able to prophesy and wield great magical power. This provides a clue to yew's mysteries and the gifts it holds, a still point in the universe present in time and space, yet able to witness the unfolding of the world from a perspective of such large spans of time, to have a unique and incredible gift for us. It provides access from our mortal viewpoint into something much larger. From the Celtic viewpoint, it may be considered as the infinite, a place where millennia blur into one another, enabling patterns and threads of meaning to be detected and understood. We are allowed a glimpse of the wider universal perspective, the view of the gods. Yew provides a link between this world and the next, but not in the guiding and transitional way of the aspen. Instead, it represents that which lies beyond, the void that must be crossed between this life and the next, and the solid presence of the unknowable and inevitable that accompanies all our lives. Should we look in its direction, we see the greater universe all around us. Our lives are as mayflies in comparison to the infinite enfolding us, a fact both terrifying and reassuring. We may end, yet something, indeed everything, continues. Edo signifies this awesome truth, and as such is associated with endings and beginnings, rebirth and mortality. The fact that death and life and the ever-turning wheel between the two are our only known certainties. Yews often grow upon barrow mounds and places associated with our ancient ancestors as markers of the world beyond our eternal spirits. For this reason, yew trees were often planted on the graves of fallen lovers, and tales abound of the trees linking the two graves, joining the souls in death. Legendary lovers Tristan and Isolde were reunited in death by the yew, as were the Irish Deirdre and Noisiu, whose separate yew trees were said to have grown over Armagh Cathedral to embrace. The yew tree's root system is vast and can be seen disturbing the surface soil in many graveyards, even breaking up the capstones of graves as the centuries pass. For this reason, the yew is traditionally sacred to crone goddesses and deities associated with death, such as the Greek Hecate and the Irish Banba. They who hold the mysteries of death and infinity in their strong ancient hands. In Rome, black bulls wreathed in yew were sacrificed to Hecate as food for the dead. The yew also holds special importance at the festival of Samhain, the Day of the Dead. Hey, I said that right, didn't I? Samhain. Ha. The Day of the Dead and the ancestors' presence and wisdom. It was burnt at Samhain to lend protection and balance these energies, negotiating relations between the living and the dead. There is a mention of yew trees in the Lays of Fionn, known as the Lament of the Fianna, which heralds the end of the legendary band of heroes, Fionn makes a prophecy. It's probably going to be Finn, isn't it? On Samhain's Eve in the Yew Glen, that the faultless Fianna should depart, and that it should be an end of us tonight. Tonight it is an utter end. In the Rennes Dinshin Charles. Oh, man. In a collection of lore connected to Irish place names, the Yew of Ross is associated with the goddess Banba and was known as a firm, straight deity, the renown of Banba, one of Ireland's 5 great magical trees, as mentioned earlier. This tree and the knowledge associated with it reveal this link between death, knowledge, and infinity. God's tree, right? Other names for the yew were Spell of Knowledge and the King's Wheel. The King's Wheel referred to here as a special brooch worn by the High Kings of Ireland, passed from one king to the next as a reminder that each king was part of a whole. The king's role required this knowledge and was a caretaker with responsibilities to the future generations. It was a reminder that the wheel would always turn and that duty to the past and future should be paramount in the king's mind. Ooh. The same could be said for all magical workers and wisdom seekers in the Celtic tradition, where the honouring of ancestors and the consideration of future generations is of utmost importance. This explains Oengus's word Ogham's associated with the yew. Fairest of ancients, or pleasing consent, as well as Moran's addendum to his kennings for the yew as service tree. The duty of honouring ancestors and looking to the future is required of us whether we undertake it or not. To ignore the call of our responsibilities to the past and future is to abuse our ancestors. The duty need not be unpleasant. It is an aspect that lends new context and depth to our actions and motivations with great enriching and enlivening results. With steady and patient progress, we may acquire the pleasing consent of our ancestors and feel their support and gentle guidance steering us into better and more fulfilled lives. As a symbol of the ancestral support available to us, the yew is indeed the fairest of ancients. A sense of eternity reveals the patterns only visible in the longest term view, illustrating how themes recur and evolve over massive spans of time, undergoing subtle shifts and adjustments on a theme, until time itself is no longer linear but spiral, evolving, expanding into existence, rather than cutting through space in a straight, logical progression. The yew tree's physical growth reflects this. As the branches take root into new trunks that all feed from the same roots, the yew maintains its impressive lifespan by spiraling in and out of the earth, enacting the spiritual knowledge it symbolizes. Yew can be seen to represent the total of all the other Ogham, in the sense that all the lessons of the other 19 take place beneath its aegis. As it allows access to the infinite, it naturally reveals the connection between all things, time, space, and points of consciousness, the sum of all knowledge. And yet Yew's position reveals an innate paradox, that whilst containing the ever-changing all, it itself holds a position of utter stillness and reflective silence. The only response to such staggering enlightenment is to learn the difference between doing and being. This is what Llewellyn is referring to when he says yew is the strength, quality or colour of a sick man, people, or an age. He is referring to the gift received in coming to terms with death and the endless movement of time. When it is realized that one's actions or errors mean little in the face of eternity, it is in being, not doing, that we learn to be truly alive. That quality of existence relies on an accumulation of wonderful, precious moments, not great, long arcs of achievement and activity. In this way, Yew teaches stillness and meditative presence, contacting the all via an awareness of each individual moment in time as it is experienced, a powerful magical tool as well as spiritual truth. Following this path yields far greater self-empowerment and inner transformation. It is only by being utterly present in the moment that the crack in time may be discerned like the crevice in the yew's ragged trunk. We may reach within and touch the face of the gods. Let's continue for another 10 minutes. Magical and practical uses. Yew leaves were once burnt as divinatory incense, in addition to their ritual use at Samhain, but only when outside. Their toxicity is so powerful that it was once thought that to sleep beneath a yew was certain to lead to death. It is now thought that the sap produces a vapor that can invoke altered states of consciousness, but real and extreme caution should be exercised, of course. Yew wood was never needlessly cut for this same reason, in addition to the great respect given to the tree. With its connections to the underworld and infinity beyond, yew is used in all sorts of ancestral magic, as well as to protect against negative forces or unwelcome ghosts. A few yew leaves placed upon the altar or worn when journeying or invoking ancestral assistance can be very effective. But as stated, caution should be used when handling all parts of the tree. It should not be in contact with bare skin for any length of time. The wood is less toxic, but it is best oiled or varnished to provide a barrier. Yew is an extremely dense, close-grained wood, excellent for carvings. Votive offerings made of yew wood have been found in British holy wells and springs. However, it was also used to make wheels, cogs, and handles. Archaeologists have found various objects made of yew in the UK, dating back as far as the Neolithic era. Yew is most famously used in making excellent longbows and knife handles, where the wood's great strength and durability were valuable characteristics. The earliest longbow ever found was discovered at Ashcott Heath in Somerset, England, dating to 2665 BCE. Man, that is ages ago. Modern archers report no ill effects from using yew bows. Yew wands are particularly powerful, preferably when made of wood fallen from a tree with its permission and with whom you have already established a relationship. We've talked about that in the Otherworld connections. Pendulum, dowsing rod, that sort of thing. A pendulum is going to help you with that if you want to get involved in helping trees and then them helping you. When working with a yew wand, always oil, wax, or varnish it before use. The yew wand not only proffers the great knowledge of infinity and ancestors, it also may assist in contacting deep land-based ancestral lines. Whoa. Following in the very path of the Druids who walked the land before us. Healing. Yew has a unique quality amongst the Ogham. It is the only poisonous tree. In many ways, the poison serves to protect its powerful energies and guard access to its knowledge. The tree requires careful handling, as does our magical and spiritual work. Yew needs to be physically respected. Just as we also need to respect our own physical bodies, maintaining the balance between the present and eternity. Too much of one is bad for the other, and balance must be prioritized if we are to progress. Perhaps notably, yew has no herbal qualities, as it is so toxic that care should be taken when near or handling it. Hands should be washed before touching the mouth or eyes after contact. The chemical taxol in the yew has been found to have some use in cancer treatments, particularly in high amounts in the Pacific yew. That said, herbally, yew has no place whatsoever in common use. It's just too dangerous. Energetically, yew can help us come to terms with our own death and find healing and solace in the realms beyond. To our eternal souls, this is the greatest healing of all. It also helps balance psychic burnout or times when our awareness has expanded excessively fast, leading to inflation, fear, or mental illness. The best ways to work with the yew for healing are to make a vibrational essence where the water used only comes into the energy field of the tree and no physical matter is used, or to commune directly with the tree spirit. Both of these approaches are recommended so long as the tree is regarded with the utmost respect and care. This is not a tree to impose your will or wishes upon. The benefit lies in its example, in being rather than doing, allowing its influence and energy to affect us as it sees fit. As a vibrational essence, yew is very grounding and heals psychic burnout from excessive spiritual or magical work. It lends perspective and a calm, steadying presence. Understanding a mortal's challenges in an infinite universe. In this way, it balances the micro and macrocosm, soothing any anxiety this shift in perspective may provoke. It also helps with issues related to grieving and aging, as well as helping to prepare the soul for the inevitability of death and the promise of rebirth. So, the divination meaning of the yew in Ogham. As an Ogham, Idho counsels patience and perseverance if either has been absent. Yet it also may suggest the need to rebalance the other way, seizing the day or the moment wholeheartedly as if it were the last. The ending of one thing inevitably leads to the beginning of another, and this process may become a wonderful joyous dance just as easily as it may invoke mortal dread. Yet the truth remains the same. Trying not to hold on too tight and carry the infinite lightly is the best way. After all, in the Celtic tradition, the afterlife is a splendid, beautiful place full of wonder, joy, and love. Finding this in the mortal world and the easing of difficulties is achieved through small, simple acts of progress and tenderness towards ourselves and others. It is our subjective experience that we have the most power to change, and peace is something that is therefore best sought within rather than without. In the face of eternity, we are all divine children, and it is our task to remember this. In doing so, we honor the past, present, and future with equal compassion. Idho asks us to enter into silence and surrender to creation with joy. Now, all that being said, really basically trees affect you emotionally, consciously, right? So to do with the healing part and the magical and practical uses, well, always take that with a pinch of salt, no matter who's saying that, no matter who's advising you. So in this book they were saying certain things you should and should not do in terms of your will and how you speak to the tree. Take all that with a pinch of salt, and while you're taking that pinch of salt, let's go to my Oracle of the Trees reading, which always ends up linking to practical. Okay, so while I was doing all this, I thought, well, I'm going to do an Oracle of the Tree reading, see what has to be said. So here we go. When you are overcome by emotions and have difficulty thinking clearly and rationally, consult a hollow tree to snap you out of it. The hollow tree can help you to identify who you can trust and who you should distance yourself from. If you are lacking clarity in a matter due to emotional overwhelm, consulting a hollow tree is the most favorable, natural way to get clarity. True story, guys, and I've done this reading before, right? So I pulled the same cards, or I got the same reading. So yew trees have a hollow. So if you were to do that with a yew tree, now knowing how wise and ancient and connected a yew tree is, you probably wouldn't have to be so direct if you were having trouble and you wanted help from a yew tree. You could probably just go up there and use your common sense on how you would go about getting this help. But I will tell you that, honestly, this literally works. You just got to be, naive and explorative enough to give it a go. Okay? And that's not coming from me. That's coming from the cards, and that's coming from all the information we've been exploring in these episodes of Otherworld Connections. Okay? So, hollow tree, for those struggling with, feelings. And if you're overwhelmed by feelings, then your thoughts get away from you because they are connected, right? And you're having difficulty thinking clearly and rationally. Consult a hollow tree. That ticks a lot of boxes for people that have those issues. Going out for a walk and getting out there in nature. Even better in your bare feet if you can, or at least when you get to the tree. But if you've got a hollow tree nearby, find a hollow tree. Hollow trees are really going to help you. Okay, now I want to go to, oh gosh, okay, we've got 6 minutes. I really need to read this. This is really cool. This is just a very small bit. I want to read the whole thing. It's literally a book called Journey into a Hollow Tree. And it's written by, and it's the account of Dr. Donald Perry, who, I'll put a link, he invented, what are they called? He invented zip lines, forest zip lines, because he's a rainforest researcher. He invented zip lines to be able to research the canopy. And I believe he's still alive, and I hope he is. Otherwise I got this all wrong. But simply he basically found a giant hollow tree, like a massive hollow tree, and he was determined to go in it. And he wrote a book about literally going into a hollow tree. So here we go. I'm just going to read a little bit. Bats, like the flies before, flapped around me. I went down a few more feet, and I couldn't believe what happened next. This guy chickened out the day before because he nearly got bitten by a deadly snake climbing up that was camouflaged, and he freaked out. The inside of the tree didn't get narrower. It opened up into a giant tree cave. Now I felt better because I knew that I would not have to touch another wall. Darkness now surrounded me, and I could only see by using a headlamp. I became excited about what I was discovering. Crawling forms of life everywhere. Steadily, I lowered myself down. I jerked my headlamp from place to place. I could catch only a brief glimpse of the story of each animal's life before moving on. I wanted to see everything in an instant. Then I was at the ground. Far above, 50 feet into the void, a small light gleamed. That was all that I could see of the narrow entrance through which, moments before, I had lowered myself on the rope. I stood on the inside of a living hollow tree where no one had ever been before. All around me, the wall shone wet in my light beam. It was covered with hundreds of 3-inch cockroaches. They clung to the moist surface, feeding on the ooze. The floor I stood on was a soft, mushy carpet that was churning with insects. I could hardly stand the stinking air. It was 90 degrees Fahrenheit and 100% humidity. It was hot and very humid. So humid that clouds of mist rose from my sweating body. Screeches came from deep within an overhead hollow limb. I flashed my light toward the sound. I saw little pinpoints of light everywhere, more than I could count. These were the eyes of a huge group of animals, and they were looking at me. Bats! I exclaimed out loud to myself. I strained to see what kind they were. I shivered as I recognized them. These bats were vampire bats that live on blood. They sneak up on mammals at night, bite them and lick up the pool of blood. For a while I worried that they might bite me, but this soon passed. They were only afraid, but still I had good reasons to worry. Vampires usually carry rabies, and you can catch this deadly disease just by breathing the air where they live. We're out of time, so I'll just quickly summarize this. He found termites and small mushrooms, which he had decided that they were the excavators of the hollow. So termites and a mushroom network were creating the hollow of the tree. I hope to do an episode on mushrooms eventually. He found nymph scorpions and whip scorpions, which are just weird scorpions. There was a mouse possum inside the hollow of the tree. And then there was a red frog. And the red frog was enticing him down a corridor, which was a giant hollow tree root. And he went on to say that he felt a lot like, it reminded him of like he was saying going down the rabbit hole, so to speak. He felt like the red frog was the white rabbit. And when he made it out, he was struck. He felt very pensive and struck by the beauty of the sunset, which he took a photo of before heading back to camp. So, I just thought that was interesting, that you look what a hollow tree in the jungle holds. And if you think about all these things symbolically, what they might mean to your thoughts and emotions, if you think of scorpions, vampire bats, cockroaches, what they might symbolize emotionally and in your thoughts. So a hollow tree can handle it. So whatever's going on, a hollow tree will be able to take that on board for you. No worries whatsoever. Thanks so much for tuning in. I love you guys. We'll see you at the next one.